Or garden by the seed of your plants. Now, as always, we start with what's growing on, where we catch you up on what's happening in our gardens. So, Erin, what is growing on with you?
Well, we got about 2 feet of snow in about 4 days this week, so nothing outside, but I have been organizing my basement, which is where I keep all of my garden stuff. There are stacks of pots, there are tools leaned up against the wall, there's plastic that should be folded but is just shoved into totes. It's a whole thing.
Yeah, but at least all of your stuff is inside. I didn't get around to it. I started to clean out the shed, and then the snow came. So I have all of my tools out underneath 2 feet of snow. I did not quite get everything set up before the winter. And even though we had 2-ish feet of snow, we can't complain. Just slightly south of us, getting 4 or 5 feet and losing power for 3 days in a row. Gravenhurst, I feel for you. My thoughts go out to those who are affected, and I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's been quite a storm.
That's nuts. Anyways, I started working with one of my clients for the winter. That's about it. Doing some construction stuff. So nothing to report on the gardens except for the snow. Oh, wait! We got a puppy! Did I talk about that?
You got a puppy!
My wife and daughter and I, my family, we have a puppy. Her name is Cora. She's a border collie Australian shepherd. And she's got like this little pattern on her backside that's like a little spot that looks like a heart. It's adorable.
And she's so fuzzy.
She is fuzzy. She's got puppy fuzz.
Yeah.
I will post pictures on socials because I can't not do that. If you want to check out those photos, be sure to follow us on all of the socials for the puppy updates.
And you can find the links to those at plantsalwayswin.com.
There you go. So that's what's growing on with us. Before we get into our plant face-off, let's take a quick water break.
And we're back with the Plant Face-Off. This is where Sean and I try to win your votes with our hand-picked plant topics of the day. We'll each try to one-up each other with the most fascinating facts and interesting intrigues, and when we're done, you get to pick your favorite topic of the episode. Cast your vote across social media with the hashtag PAWFaceoff.
Alrighty, so I was thinking about this. Today, we have 2 amazing winter plants, very, very popular commercial plants sold right before Christmas time, right around October, November, and throughout the winter months. We have Amaryllis and
Poinsettia.
Poinsettia, is that how you pronounce it?
Okay, I wanted to bring that up because it's not how I grew up pronouncing it. I grew up pronouncing it poinsettia. There's a T in there that doesn't exist, and an I that should. I heard other people saying poinsettia.
Yeah.
How did you grow up saying it?
Poin, like with a little bit of a T, but not quite. Poinsettia. But I don't know if that's right. It's one of those things.
Is it an Ontario thing? I don't know.
All right, so we're going to let Erin start with poinsettias today, but if you want to correct us, tell us how you pronounce that word.
Tell us what region you're from when you do.
Oh, yeah, we'll put a chart together. Why not? I think it's so fun. This is going to come up a lot. Nomenclature within horticulture is hilarious. One of my favorites is when I was first studying horticulture and plants and gardening is Cottoneaster, because it's spelled Cottoneaster, and you're just like Cottoneaster. But I always said Cottoneaster.
Me too.
Right? That's incorrect.
I only ever encountered it in books.
Right? Anyways, why don't you get started? Where does the name poinsettia come from?
Well, it's honestly the most depressing of the many names this plant has. It's named for Joel Roberts Poinsett, who was the first U.S. ambassador to Mexico, and he's the one who introduced the plants to the USA in the 1820s. And that sounds neutral enough, but he was also a slave owner and was involved in displacing Native Americans. So these days there's a movement to re-adopt the Nahuatl name, which is cuetlaxochitl.
That does not quite roll off the tongue, but I will try.
There are other options.
Okay,
There's
thank you.
La Flor de Nochebuena. Sorry, my Spanish always sounds a bit French. That's French immersion for you. It means the flower of the good night. That's the literal translation, but it really means the Christmas Eve flower because it blooms at Christmas time.
Right. Now, introduced to the U.S. from Mexico, can I assume that that's where they're from?
Yes. And we know that they were cultivated by the Aztecs. They used them for decoration, for red and purple dyes, and they made medicines from the sap.
Medicines from the sap. Yeah, that's something that we hear quite often. Not poison from the sap. That's something that I hear all the time.
Now, that's an interesting thing. We were all raised to believe that these plants are poisonous. but there's been research lately that confirms they are not, in fact. Some people can get dermatitis from the sap. It is an irritant. You don't want to put it in your eyes, but they're not actually toxic. I read an account from a man whose family has been cultivating them for generations, and he said, well, yeah, that makes sense to me because in all this time we've never had a report of a child or a pet falling ill from them.
As a good rule of thumb, just for general safety measures, just like with mushrooms, if you don't know, don't touch it. If a plant has a milky sap, don't touch it. Don't put it in your skin. That's just general. Of course, if you have experience and knowledge, that's very different. But general rule of thumb, if it has a milky sap, don't put it on your skin.
Yeah, that sap probably has irritants in it.
Mm-hmm. Probably lots of animals, very particular insects, indulge on that particular type of sap as a fun little side bonus.
For accumulating toxins to make themselves toxic?
Yes. So without getting into the details, because it's very species specific, a lot of caterpillars, for example, will indulge on plants that have this milky-like sap to them to take in some of that toxicity. So monarchs that consume milkweed, for example, as a caterpillar, they're constantly eating the leaves and the sap and ingesting that. And monarchs are known to have toxicity if ingested. Don't eat a monarch, but like kids and dogs and other animals, birds and cats, quite often actually outdoor cats tend to get sick. It's surprisingly common. They caught a monarch.
Right.
Anywho.
I've been working on... No, we're not anyhewing yet. There's more here.
Oh, sorry.
I've been working on the back matter for an upcoming book that involves monarchs and milkweed. And in my research, I found this whole chart that somebody made of insects who specialize in milkweed and which ones accumulate the toxin. And it's a lot of them. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's a fantastic defense mechanism.
Yeah. All right, we can anywho now. Back to the matter at hand.
That was a stick off a branch off a tangent. It just kept going.
Yeah, time to leaf it.
I look forward to that milkweed book, though.
Me too.
Yeah, can I get a signed copy?
Oh, of course.
Fantastic.
Maybe we'll do a giveaway on the podcast.
I love that. Anywho, there's the official anywho.
Yes.
Back to poinsettias. Or
cuetlaxochitl.
Cuetlaxochitl. Cuetlaxochitl. I'm going to say that a few more times in my head.
For sure. I'll give you the Latin name in the meantime. It's
thank you.
Euphorbia pulcherrima.
Okay, Euphorbia. What?
Pulcherrima.
Pulcherrima.
Meaning the most beautiful euphorbia.
Whoa. Shots fired.
Yeah.
You know what Euphorbia reminds me of for the most part? Cactuses. Because I have some Euphorbia cactuses behind me.
Interesting. I was thinking to myself as I was researching for this, like, oh, well, I know I've grown some Euphorbia here, but it's very different. I've grown cushion spurge. And most of the time, if you're finding plants in a garden centre in Ontario that are going to grow outside and they're in the Euphorbia family, they probably say spurge on them.
Spurge. Yeah.
Spurge. Yeah. It's a far cry from most beautiful spurge, but...
It's not a beautiful name, is it? Spurge.
No. But it's a very varied family of plants. And so you've got cacti. I've had the spurge, which is like foot-tall spires of many short leaves coming out of a single stem. But poinsettias, or cuetlaxochitl, are actually these lanky shrubs or short trees that what we think of as the flower is very small flowers and colorful leaves or modified leaves called bracts at the end of a branch of this shrub.
So that's, I think, a good vocabulary word for today is bract. So a bract is, as you said, a modified leaf. It changes the color. It doesn't necessarily photosynthesize. Sometimes it does a little bit if it still has chlorophyll, but it has extra pigments in it to change the color to resemble a flower. And so since the poinsettias actually have this tiny little insignificant looking flower in the middle, it broadens that bullseye target from a distance, and it really looks colorful and appealing to pollinators and insects and birds from a distance.
Yeah.
Now you said it's a shrub, but I remember the big thing right now that's going around the internet is like where your houseplant lives in the wild or what it looks like in the wild. And I see pictures of big poinsettia trees.
I've seen in my research both tall shrub or short tree. So
Okay.
it must occupy a middle space. But yeah, they do look different in the wild aside from not being pot-sized. They are not necessarily as compact as we find them in our florist shops. And do you know the reason for that? How they get them so compact?
I do, but I don't want to spoil it.
It's two things. One of it is, pinching off growth at the right times. And the other is a bacteria that was discovered to make the plants grow in this way.
Is it a GHR?
It's a phytoplasma.
Okay, that's fascinating. I didn't think about bacteria. What I was thinking was a growth hormone regulator. It's quite often used in nursery production and mass commercial production as a way to stunt the plant's growth for a limited period. If it's derived from a bacteria, that makes total sense to me now.
I think these are two different things because according to the American Phytopathological Society, this is the only definitive example of a commercially beneficial phytoplasma. It was discovered in 1997 by a Department of Agriculture plant pathologist named In-Ming Lee. He just realized that this bacterium he was studying actually created a desirable effect in these very important commercial plants.
Huh. So it shortened the internodal space, so it made it less lanky, more dense. That's fascinating. I know that there is another method, which is the control and timing and distance of light. But I'm sure you're gonna get to that.
Yeah, commercial growers do need to manage the light that they are getting very specifically. And if you want your plant to rebloom for you after Christmas, you need to also manage the light that it gets very carefully.
Yep.
If you want to do that, the University of Minnesota and the University of Oklahoma, or Oklahoma State, both of their extension offices have really good detailed instructions on doing that.
Oh, good.
Minnesota's has a really cool way of doing it. They give you a list of instructions to do each one on an American holiday.
There you go. Okay.
It's things like keep it in the dark for this period of time and then start giving it 4 hours of direct sunlight a day and then this and then bring it outside for the summer. And yeah, it's all about how many hours of darkness and daylight plants get. I learned recently that it's not actually the daylight they measure, but the darkness. I love that.
Did I tell you that?
It might have been you, and I read it in The Light Eaters.
Oh, yeah. So when we watched Little Shop of Horrors, and we sat down and we talked about plant lighting and the different spectrums and light durations and whatnot, that was one of the fun plant facts was when you hear a description of a plant that's called a short day plant or a long day plant, it's not actually the daytime. It's the amount of darkness. When you turn on the light, to keep it very simple, the plant gets activated immediately. But it's the length of nighttime that slowly diminishes that activation of what's going on in the plant. You can use the length of night to control or to trick the plant into thinking what time of year it is. And you can also interrupt that. So if you have 12 hours of nighttime and halfway through the night, 6-hour mark, you turn on a light for 20 minutes or something, and then you turn the light off, it'll think it's 2 6-hour night periods, not one 12-hour night period. So the plant is tricked into thinking it's the opposite time of year. So what else?
All right, back to these guys. You can get them with the bracts in red, cream, pink, orange, yellow, green, or variegated. But just so you know, and I'd love to know if you encounter this in your profession, Sean, if you see them in blue or purple, that is a cream one that's been spray painted.
Yeah, okay. So I was hoping you would talk about this. This is my little plant rant prior to, There was a garden center, an Ontario-based garden center. I don't know the name of it, but it went mega viral last year on TikTok by talking about their poinsettias and what they got them all shipped in. They didn't grow them themselves. I just want to be clear. They got a massive shipment in from somewhere else. And then they spray painted them with glitter and color and all this stuff. And they were proud. And they said, it doesn't harm the plant. It doesn't do anything wrong. And I'm like, here's the problem. You're still covering the plant surface. You're not poisoning the soil. You're not poisoning the plant. But you're still covering the surface that is doing even a minimal amount of photosynthesis. The other thing is, I, with a strong passion, despise glitter.
Yes. So, talk about microplastics.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so the environmental implication of just spraying the plants with spray paint and glitter just for a decoration purpose, it defeats any sort of green carbon neutral balance that they are as an industry. You had all these plants shipped in, and then you sprayed them, and then you sold them. The carbon footprint of that, it's no longer a green industry, even if you're selling plants. It was very gross to me. That's just me. This is my opinion. If you love those things, I don't judge you for it.
Something I encountered when I was in Michigan for a garden conference this past fall was people actually spray painting plants in their outdoor gardens.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh,
I didn't know this was a thing.
Yeah, especially with certain hedges like boxwoods. That's another one that I'm not super fond of. Boxwoods are very susceptible to so many pests and diseases. We're going to be talking about boxwoods in an upcoming episode because their grow operation is fascinating. They have like 10-foot wall security measures and detox as you go in and hazmat suits. It's crazy because they're so highly susceptible to just about everything. It takes a very niche environment for it, without any effort, to stay perfectly thick and green. In Canada, it's a little tricky. They want to reach, they want to stretch. They end up losing that boxy shape and just turning back a small tree or shrub. And what a lot of people tend to do is in those hollow spaces that lose foliage because of whatever reason, it killed a branch or whatever, it's now like a Pac-Man shape. It's like an empty hole. And they'll spray paint it green so you don't see it. Sorry. Or spray painting lawns. Why bother?
Yeah.
That's
lawn culture is a whole thing. Maybe that's an episode.
So back to poinsettias. Is there anything else? Are there some fun facts or some things that I should know about?
I thought I should go through how people can care for them if they acquire them. So
I love it.
First thing is straight away, you're taking it from the store to your car. You want to wrap it up because these guys do not tolerate cold. If it is colder than 10 degrees Celsius, which is 50 Fahrenheit, it's not going to be happy.
That's such a fun, wild fact. Because they're sold in winter.
Yes.
It's a Mexican tree. And it is sold...
Yes, clip a branch off a Mexican tree, put it in a pot, fly it to Canada, spray paint it, wrap it up, carry it through a snowstorm.
That's it.
Once you get it home, don't let it touch a cold window. It won't like that. You also want it to be kept consistently moist and with consistent temperature, so it doesn't want to be near a vent or a fan, anywhere there's going to be fluctuation of temperature and dryness. It will like being in a window that gets bright daylight for 4 to 6 hours every day. That can be facing any direction but north. In order to keep it nicely moist, a good way to water it is put it in the sink, water it thoroughly, let it drain completely, put it back.
Yep.
People are going to tell you you can keep it watered by putting an ice cube on the soil. It doesn't like cold.
It's another ice cube hack.
Yeah, the ice cube hacks, honestly, every time I hear about the ice cube hack, the real answer is always put it in the sink, soak it, drain it, put it back.
Yeah, bottom water if you have the time for that. I have too many plants. I can't be bothered bottom watering, honestly. But yeah, oh gosh, don't use ice cubes for your houseplants. Your houseplants are tropical or Mexican. Don't do that.
But here's a nice tip for plants like this that like to be humid. Keep them with other houseplants. Because plants are always transpiring through their leaves. The environment around them is more humid than the rest of your house. Yeah. So they'll keep each other happy.
I love that. Another fun little hack is just having a bowl of water and rocks, like a little fish tank without the fish. And that the moisture gets sucked up into the dry air, because if your air gets too dry, it's not exactly the same as evaporation, but it is essentially evaporating into the air. Or if you want to get one of those viral Godzillas, have you seen that yet?
No.
Oh, it's a little toy right now that's going viral in the plant community on TikTok. It's a Godzilla that sprays mist. So you load it up with water.
Just a Godzilla humidifier?
Exactly. I independently had a dozen people send me that video. I'm like, yes, I know. I want one. I will not get one, but it's so cool.
Man, that's delightful.
Any more fun facts?
Just that you can bring it outside in the summer. It will enjoy that. And even if you don't go through the labor of making sure it has the right periods of light and dark to rebloom, it's still a nice plant with green leaves. So, you don't need to just throw it out after the holiday season. Enjoy it. Put it out in the garden or in a larger pot in the summer. Let it have proper warmth and sunlight, and it'll be a delight.
Yeah.
If you want to learn more about the cultural history, swansonnursery.com has a great post about that. Ooh. And then for detailed care instructions, both Oklahoma State and Minnesota University Extension offices fantastic posts.
That sounds fantastic. Like many houseplants, before you bring them inside, I would advise chopping them a little bit. So you take them out in the spring and enjoy the summer and enjoy the fall. But before you bring them inside in the fall, they tend to do a little better without being repotted, a little bit pot bound, and cut them down. Not right to the ground, but I have a fiddly fig, for example. I chop that guy up every year. Anywho, that's about it. You can also propagate, and don't feel bad if you did buy one of the spray painted glitter ones. I'm sorry. I'm very emotional. I've got some strong feelings, but I don't judge you if you have one of those. That's fine. Those leaves will probably fall off.
Our feelings are mostly about systems and corporations and not individuals.
Yeah. Also, one way or another, you are paying for that glitter and spray paint. It's included in the cost of the plant. Spoiler, just so you know. Right. And that's going to fall off. Anywho, let's take a quick water break and come back and talk about Amaryllis. Which Amaryllis? Spoiler. And we're back. Before I get into talking about Amaryllis, I do have a very quick word of warning. If you're doing some research on certain type of plants that are very popular and commercial, you're going to come across a lot of blogs, a lot of commercial websites that are selling you their products. And it takes some real digging to find some good reputable sources, some good information, and just keep digging.
This is why I went to the extension offices for my information. If people don't know, Canadians might not be familiar with this, extension offices are departments within local counties or universities throughout the United States, and they're run by university employees and volunteers who are experts in local horticulture. It's actually kind of the need that the master gardeners fill here.
Absolutely. And there are, so we'll talk about, because I want to talk to the inbound president of McGoy soon. McGoy stands for Master Gardeners of Ontario Incorporated. We're getting a new president in the new year, and I had a conversation with her recently, and she agreed to come on eventually after the dust has settled a little bit to talk about the Master Gardener program. But yes, there are Master Gardener programs in multiple countries, in multiple states, in multiple provinces, and each one of them does essentially fill that scientifically backed information. But as our understanding of science changes, our understanding of certain systems does change. So that is a very important role that the Master Gardeners fill, absolutely. Depending on what kind of information you're looking for, you can get away with sometimes a little less scientifically reputable sources if you're just looking for a place to start, such as Wikipedia. And I do apologize. I know it's not scientifically reputable, but it's not bad. It's a good place to start. It might point something out that you're like, oh, hey, I didn't think about that. That's a good point.
And it always gives you a trail of references to follow.
Yes, that's the follow the sources, follow the citations, follow the references. So my sources today, Britannica.com, Wikipedia, Gardening.com, and WisconsinHorticulture.edu, and my own personal experience and the Master Gardeners of Ontario. So let's talk about Amaryllis. First things first, Amaryllis. What is it? Seasonal decorative bulbous flower, often sold in early winter months, such as November, December, and throughout the winter, as a flowering ornamental plant. Because it has this big, beautiful, showy flower, multiple flowers on the same stalk, that last for upwards of 75 to 90 days, depending on how it's taken care of. That's more than 2 months long. That's amazing. So they are a perennial bulb. I need to make that clear to people. Perennial.
Right.
And a bulb.
Yeah.
They are hardy to USDA zones 8 to 11. Do you know what that means? Pretty close to the equator.
Yeah. So not hardy up here.
No. Your most. There are some parts of Canada that can push a microclimate zone 8, but very, very unlikely. You're talking the West Coast, you're talking maybe a little bit of the Niagara escarpment kind of area. If you're lucky, you might have a good microclimate that can push a zone 8. But for Canadians, essentially, most Americans, if you are buying an Amaryllis bulb, you got to take it in the winter. So, they belong to the family Amaryllidaceae. All families end with the suffix ACEAE, which is pronounced ACA, so Amaryllidaceae. So there are several subfamilies. This was new to me, and it makes sense, and it's totally fascinating. So some subfamilies, the Alioideae, or allium family, is actually in the Amaryllis family. Alliums are plants like onions, shallots, leeks, garlic, chives. These are bulbous plants that we eat, except for the ornamental allium, which you can technically eat, but apparently it's very bitter. I love them. They're big, beautiful flowers. Another subfamily is Agapanthoideae. that's a tongue twister. The African lily and the Amarylloideae, which has two in particular, but there's the Amaryllis, the Cape tulip, and the Narcissus genus, which are daffodils.
Great.
And if you think about it, if you think about what a daffodil looks like and the amaryllis flower that we're going to talk about, what they look like, of course, they look so very similar. You've got that trumpet-like flower that shoots out from an initial hollow tube of a stalk. There's also snowdrops and snowflakes. One little thing, most plants in the lily family, generally speaking, there are exceptions and there are falsehoods, but most plants in the lily family are toxic. Don't eat it.
Right. And don't let your pets eat it.
Don't let your pets eat it. And then there is the amaryllis that we know commercially. Were you aware that there's a fake, real amaryllis out there?
I was not.
No. So we have the Amaryllis belladonna, which is native to South Africa. And then there is the Amaryllis, which has been reclassified in the 1800s to the Hippeastrum genus. If you dissect those two words, hippie is Greek for horse, and astrum is Greek for star or shine or sun.
A quick editing interjection. Sean was correct when he pronounced it hippeastrum here, but just like with Cottoneaster, it gets confusing when vowels get squished together, and he's going to say hippeastrum for the rest of the episode. Because
of this, there's a little bit of confusion, which is why I had my disclaimer at the beginning, because I was looking up amaryllis, and I kept getting information on the quote-unquote true amaryllis, which is slightly different and is from South Africa, versus the hippeastrum, which we call Amaryllis, just as a common name. It's technically a different genus. But what happened was, in the 1800s, there are Dutch commercial growers who, Dutch farmers are very famous for all of their bulbs and all of their tulips and daffodils and other bulbs. It's a very famous region for bulb growers. Harvested amaryllis from South America, the hippeastrum, and amaryllis from South Africa, which is the true amaryllis, the belladonna, and started crossbreeding and breeding new varieties. So now, today, we're going to talk about the hippeastrum, which is the amaryllis flower that is sold commercially at your local box store or grocery store or whatever. The Christmas flower, as some people like to call it. Some other names include Jersey lily, belladonna lily, naked lady lily, that's my favorite, and March lily. Let's talk about the origin of the name before I talk to you about how to care for it. So, from the Greek amaryllis, which is a name for a country girl in pastoral poetry. In Roman literature, it's a stock female character or a natural pretty young woman who is usually a shepherdess.
That's interesting because if you've got pretty woman and then belladonna, which is pretty woman.
So this is where it gets a little bit confusing because of the two different plants that share the name amaryllis. So the history behind it is a little bit confusing. So the true amaryllis is native to Cape Province in South Africa, as I mentioned, and the hippeastrum, which is the amaryllis that we know commercially today, is native to South America. And they have been naturalized in too many places to list. I kid you not. It would take over an hour for me to list all the parts of the world where this plant has naturalized. But I want to emphasize that word. Naturalized.
Yes. What is the distinction?
So a naturalized plant is a plant that is brought into an area that is not necessarily quote-unquote native to that area, but it is not causing harm or taking over or spreading dramatically. It's actually a very slow-growing, slow-spreading plant, and I'll talk about that in a quick second. It has adapted to living in that environment, to the seasonal shift of that environment, to the spring, summer, fall, winter, but it is not causing any harm. It is naturalized. It is possibly providing some sort of benefit to pollinators or other herbivores that are potentially consuming the foliage. It's related to onions and garlics and chives and narcissus and other stuff. So it does kind of make sense. So the first commercial breeders were said to be Dutch growers in the 18th century with a global distribution starting around the 19th century. And they harvested both genus and started breeding new cultivars. Do you know how many cultivars there are today?
I couldn't begin to guess.
Over 600 named varieties.
Wow.
So when you're talking about the amaryllis, some people might call it hippeastrum, but they won't give you a species when they talk about the name because there's too many. There's almost as many as there are Pokemon.
Gotta grow them all.
You gotta grow them all. And they all have a name, which is fascinating. I want to talk to someone about breeding plants and the process that is involved in certifying a new variety? That would be a fascinating conversation. If somebody knows somebody who has done that or could put them in touch with us, that would be great. Reach out to us via email. I would love to have that conversation.
Yeah. If there are 600 named varieties, then how many more are there that just don't breed true at this point?
Exactly. So let's talk about Greek mythology. And this is from gardeners.com. So Greek mythology brings us the story of Amaryllis, a love-struck maiden who longed for a handsome but cold-hearted Altio. Desperate to win his love, she pierced her heart with a golden arrow and then visited his cottage daily, shedding drops of blood along the way.
Romantic.
And on the 30th day, beautiful scarlet flowers bloomed along the path. Alteo was enamored. Amaryllis's heart was healed. And of course, that is where the flower gets its name. It was named after her.
Right.
Of course, she puts in all the work and he's like, cool, I love your flower. Thanks.
Is that it? They don't.
That's the whole thing. I'm sure there's more to it. That's all that I wanted to talk about. So here, before we get into the caring, I want to talk about these fun facts because honestly, they're wild. So Amaryllis means to sparkle in Greek. We talked about that. In nature, Amaryllis blooms in the spring and summer, kind of the opposite of what we think. But they're commonly forced to bloom early for the holidays.
Okay.
So if they, of course, go dormant for a winter or a cold period, and then they pop back up in the spring and summer and bloom, it's the opposite for us. So we have them forcefully bloom in the winter indoors, and then we take them outside in the spring so that the foliage can absorb as much energy spring, summer, fall as possible, regrow that bulb because it will shrivel a little bit. That's kind of an interesting distinction, is that as a Canadian, our care of these bulbs is opposite of what they would do naturally in nature. Mm-hmm. The U.S. imports more than 10 million Amaryllis bulbs every year, mainly from Holland and South Africa.
These holiday plants are big business, very economically important.
Yeah, it's wild, right? 10 million bulbs. Depending on where you go, this isn't part of my fun facts list, but the prices of these things range wildly. You can get them for $4. You can get them for $35. If you want a very specific niche, custom ordered, fancy cultivar, I've seen them upwards of $80 a bulb.
Wow.
Isn't that bananas? Don't spend $20. Honestly, wait a little bit. Anything below $10 is fine. And if there's any leftovers after the holiday season that are still in its box, it's still dormant, yeah, you can get them for a good sale price. Say $10 is my personal limit. Amaryllis reproduce by growing daughter bulbs next to the mother bulb. Those are in air quotes. Now, a daughter bulb in this sense, a term that I use and that a lot of other horticulturists use is pup. A little pup. Right. And so what you'll see is on the side of the bulb, you'll see a tiny little, or bulblet, is a tiny little bulb sticking off the side of your bulb. You can take that off and it'll take about 3 to 5 years for that daughter bulb to reach its own marketable size. Now, that's a very important distinction. It can start blooming before then. It might take 2 to 3 years, but a marketable size has to be a certain size. You can grow Amaryllis from seed, which I do, but it can take up to 6 years for them to reach maturity to produce a flower. So I started doing this 2 years ago, and every winter I will pick one of my plants to manually pollinate, and I will save those seeds, and I started them. So I'm starting a 6-year process 2 years ago, and every year I have a new batch of seedlings. And yeah, I'm excited to, in a couple of years, start having an annual cycle of here's the new batch from 6 years ago, give or take.
Are they small and spindly in their first years?
Oh, yeah. Do you want to see them?
Sure.
You know what? After this, it's right up outside of my reach, but I will show you right after this call. And after we post this episode, I'll put it on social media.
Yeah. The only bulbs I have grown from seed are onions. They are also very small and spindly.
Yeah. So properly cared for, an amaryllis can live for approximately 75 years.
Wow.
That's an important distinction. Not all plants don't live forever. Even perennials, even trees, even shrubs. But if properly cared for, they have an approximate lifespan of 75 years. Awesome.
I wonder if that requires dividing the pups away so that they continue to have space, or if they can live that long in the wild.
Oh, that's a good distinction. Because the pups would, of course, because they're attached, they would take some of the nutrients from the quote-unquote mother plant. So yeah, that's a great question. All I know is that if somehow you keep an amaryllis for 75 plus years, the amount of babies you would get off of that would be awesome. But because of that growing pattern, by the way, that is why they're naturalized, not invasive. They don't spread super fast. because it's very hard for the seeds to effectively germinate and grow depending on where they are. And the pups also spread very slowly. You'll see little clusters if you're planting these in the wild, but the surrounding plants in the garden tend to keep the seedlings at bay.
And most plants that grow like that, if you don't divide them, they do kind of smother themselves over time.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing with strawberries. What I see a lot of my clients or a lot of people that are going to Horse Society meetings that I've seen, they're like, oh yeah, I started a strawberry bed. And so you have one single raised bed with just strawberries in it. And she's like, but we never get any strawberries. I'm like, yeah, about that. It is strangling itself, and strawberries are also known to be allelopathic. That's a different word. We'll talk about strawberries another time. So amaryllis have a dramatic, long-lasting cut flowers. I've never cut an amaryllis flower. I tend to let them go, but I'm curious how that's going to do. So I think when I have peak bloom on one of my, because I have several amaryllis bulbs, I'm going to cut it and spray it with hairspray to kind of keep its shape. I'm going to test this out. I don't know how well it's going to work. We'll see.
So glitter, no, but hairspray, yes.
You caught me. The environmental hypocrisy. In terms of preserving flowers. So I have a few different dried cut flowers that I don't spray with anything. They're completely natural. I just cut them off and I let them dry and they look beautiful, like hydrangeas, like black-eyed Susans. But in my couple of years of having amaryllis bulbs, if you cut it, the flowers don't last very long in my personal experience. I'm curious if spraying it with what is essentially a spray-on plastic adhesive, such as hairspray, if that would allow it to keep its shape as it dries out.
Right.
But you're right. Maybe I shouldn't do that. That's very hypocritical. Oh, but I'm not. Oh, you know what? The difference, if I were to give myself a little leeway here, is that I'm cutting the flower off. I'm not spraying it as it's actively growing to make it look. No, you make a good point. All right.
Well, something to think about.
Darn. See, we even call each other out on stuff. So the last of the fun facts, the genus Hypaistrum has yielded several substances with medically useful properties, one of which has shown promise as a treatment for Alzheimer's, which is interesting. Interesting. I'd like to know more on that. That's on my to-do list or to look into list. So let's talk about caring for amaryllis. Do you know how to care for an amaryllis? Do you have an amaryllis, by the way?
The only time I have ever interacted with an amaryllis was when my boss at work had one.
Oh, okay.
And it was already blooming when she brought it in.
Do you want one?
Would I be good at caring for it? Tell me the tips.
Okay. So, first, it will produce a this is generally for Canadians because if you live somewhere where they're hardy, you're going to be planting them outside and then letting nature do its thing. So, if you're taking it inside as a houseplant, it will first produce a hollow flower stalk, and possibly two, with some foliage. Let the flower bloom. Enjoy, marvel, delight in its grandeur. It's beautiful and sometimes ridiculously massive. I'm talking larger than the largest bouquet I've ever seen. When the flowers die off, you may find that it produces a seed pod, which means that it's somehow pollinated. Fantastic. Congratulations, houseflies, or maybe you did it yourself like me. You can let those seed pods fully develop until they're fully shriveled up and they'll basically fall off by themselves. And you can grow those seeds if you want to. You don't have to. After the flowers die off, the stalk itself will slowly start to shrivel. Now, what is advised for a lot of bulbous plants is you let that stalk shrivel up naturally because it's essentially reabsorbing a lot of those nutrients back into the bulb itself. I know that some people think that, okay, the flowers are done, I cut the flower stalk off. You can. That's okay. But you are exposing where you cut it off to the elements. You're exposing it to potentially pests and diseases, although if it's inside your house, probably not. But just letting it die off naturally is probably the best way to go. And then you let the foliage grow. It's now in its growth stage, so you want to pot it. You want to put it in soil. Leave the very top exposed to the air. You don't want to fully submerge this thing. Right. Underground, I mean. Remove any wax, because that's one thing that you'll probably see a lot that I can't believe I didn't mention yet. Commercially, they're often sold dipped in wax because it already has all of the nutrients it needs in that bulb in order to produce a flower. So it will push up flower and foliage, but that wax is preventing the roots from growing. But as it produces that flower, it's using a lot of that nutrients, and what will actually happen was the bulb itself will diminish in size, and you can likely peel that wax right off because there's a little bit of a hollow space, and the outer skin, much like an onion, will be able to peel right off.
You're talking about moving it into soil after it blooms. So during the bloom period, is it just sitting in a little dish of water?
No, nothing. Completely dry.
Nothing at all. Okay.
Often, because they're sold commercially, like dipped in wax or glued to a little display or something like that, it doesn't even have roots. And so it will push a flower and foliage and maybe some roots. But when the flower is done, take the wax off, repot it. Personally, I like to repot it as soon as I get it. A lot of people don't do that. So while it's in its growth stage is when you definitely 100% need to repot it or plant it outside temporarily or something like that. No, they're not even sitting in water. You can, I suppose, have it sitting in water. But no, you don't have to.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, it doesn't even need water. It doesn't need anything.
So what triggers it to break dormancy? Is it just lighting?
Lighting and temperature.
Now, this is the challenge for me because in my house, each of my rooms has an individual thermostat and we don't keep them warm overnight. So I worry that an amaryllis wouldn't like my house.
Oh, potentially. That's the tricky bit, especially with Canadians, is with our houseplants. The winter air, I don't think people from many parts of the States realize that winter air is incredibly dry and humidity is a massive factor with our houseplants. They say light is the biggest factor. And I'm like, yeah, but also super duper dry. The foliage tends to go crispy really fast. It'll be a fun experiment. I've got an extra bulb that I have not planted yet. So I will give that to you the next time I see you. And you can start your own little amaryllis journey.
Yeah, we'll find out if it tolerates going down to 10 degrees at night.
Yeah, I'm almost into that part of the caring is the forced bloom. So after it's gone through the spring, summer, and fall of the growth stage, the foliage will grow big and beautiful, and it's really absorbing and photosynthesizing and storing nutrients as much as possible. In the fall, they're going to be tolerant to the early frost, the early colder days, and you'll notice that the foliage kind of gets a little saggy and droopy. Cut it down. Completely cut all the foliage off 100% and let it dry out. Take it inside. Stick it in your cold, dark basement. And what that will do is essentially force a temporary dormancy period. And when you see the bulb start to poke back up again, start to regrow, that's when you might realize it's waking up from its dormancy period in my basement. And that's when you can pull it out. Mine are probably about ready to pull out right now. The foliage is actually a little bit too long. I'm not comfortable with how much it's reaching for the sunlight. But it is what it is. And so I'll take them out pretty soon. We are recording this early December, just for context. Then you take it out again after about a month in your basement, or maybe 2 months, depending on whatever. And then the cycle will restart. It'll produce a flower, it'll produce foliage, you'll have a winter, cut it back. Yeah, the circle of life continues.
Exciting.
I have one last little thing before we get into a really quick question, because I brought a question for us. If you don't want to keep your bulb after it flowers, that's fine. I get it. It's like buying a bouquet, and if you're done with it when it's done, that's fine. Please consider donating it to your local Hort Society, library, or Master Gardener group. I am more than confident that somebody will be like, yes, please, I would love that. That'd be great. Or me. If you want to send it to me, let me know.
All your plants to Sean. His wife will be delighted.
That's it. I do a massive purge and donation in the fall, and I only keep the good ones. One day we're hoping to expand this podcast and to do more stuff, and part of that dream, that ambition, is having a greenhouse somewhere. So if you are a commercial breeder as well and you have a cool new cultivar and you want us to try it out, we will 100% showcase that on our socials. So let us know, reach out to us, and I would be super thrilled to showcase your 601 breeds of amaryllis.
Yes, all of them.
Yes, they're one of my favorites, by the way. I love amaryllis. They're so
really
cool.
Beautiful.
They are. Okay, now this is the part of the podcast where we answer your garden questions. I have a question from a friend of ours.
Ooh.
Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this question comes in from Deborah. Hi, Deborah.
Hi, Deborah.
Can you still plant a tree at this time of year? Now, this question was posed 2 weeks ago. Things have changed.
Yes. With 2 feet of snow on the ground, Deborah, I would say no.
That's a
but
fair
it's only
answer.
been here for a few days.
Yes. So here's the long and skinny of it. If the ground is not completely frozen and you can dig, technically you can plant a tree. But is that good? Is that the right thing to do? So if you have nursery stock and trees that are sitting in pots, the pot is above ground, it's less insulated for the winter, it's better for the roots to be underground than it is to be above ground. And more likely than not, by late fall, early winter, the tree is already dormant. It's already gone to sleep. It's already dropped most of its foliage. So yeah, you can. You can still plant around this time of year. Even in the winter, if you wanted to dig through the frozen ground. I wouldn't suggest that. That does not sound appealing to me at all. It's always best probably early spring or after the summer, early spring or early fall.
And maybe in the meantime, if it is potted, you could put leaf bags or straw bales around for insulation.
Yes, you can insulate it, absolutely. So the question, there was a little bit of context to it. There was someone that she knew that wanted to plant a large evergreen outdoor Christmas tree, and that changes the variables a lot.
Yes.
So the evergreen is going to keep trying to grow over the winter. It keeps its foliage. It loses a lot of needles, but it keeps growing. Planting it might actually be a little bit traumatic. It can be done, but it's not necessarily advised. If a deciduous tree is dormant, you can do whatever you want. You could prune it. You could stick it in the ground. I personally wouldn't advise that pre-winter. Pruning, I would advise late winter, early spring.
Before bud break.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah. Or if you want to propagate those fruit trees, then we're talking early cuttings in early spring as you see the buds start to develop, but before they, as you called it, bud break, before the buds open up, because the buds are still asleep, but they have enough energy within them to already open up. They're just waiting for the temperature to be a little bit warmer. Mm-hmm. Well, that's it for this episode.
If you'd like to reach out with a topic suggestion or plant question, you can find contact and social links at plantsalwayswin.com.
You'll find our Discord, show notes, resources, and information about our friends of the podcast, like Sophia Alladin, who designed and illustrated our website.
If you'd like to support our growth, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/plantsalwayswinpodcast for as little as $2 a month.
And we really appreciate it. Or you can spread the word. Give us a review on your podcast player of choice, or simply tell someone about us.
The music you hear during the intro and right now is called When My Ukulele Plays by Soundtroll on upbeat.io.
So thank you for joining us. Now go out and enjoy your holiday flowers of choice. And remember, it doesn't matter if you garden by the book or by the seat of your pants. Plants always win.